2, 1, go!
We were playing this part where I was like, oh, a buddy of mine always struggled during this part to where you're heading down like in a mine cart and you can take cover. And I said, there's a guy who comes out with like a grenade launcher. And I said, oh, like, we don't even have to worry about him. Just stay in cover. And the moment that came out of my mouth, he shot a grenade at me and killed me instantly. And I go, whoa, I stand corrected.
Like, oh yeah, we don't have to worry about that guy.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that guy. Oh no. Oh no. I really wish we had that recorded. That was like the funniest thing.
Yeah.
It's always when you don't record stuff, the funniest shit happens and you're like, man, I wish we'd recorded. Like when we were playing Destiny and Brandy was running with that orb and then it just disappeared. It was just like, we laughed about it for like 2 hours afterwards.
Oh yeah, we did the whole
She was like running and it just as she got to the thing, it just vanished.
Yeah, for no reason.
Victory moment.
The orb just disappears.
That was a hero moment and it was taken away from her.
Yeah, she's like, I got it.
Fail.
Just always be recording. That's it. Even if you don't think you need it recorded, just record it.
Like I'm doing right now.
Record. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed we were recording. I was like, on air, like, oh no.
Control.
It's usually when I say my most racist shit. I'm recording.
and we're live. Welcome.
You're not a real Mexican, and shit, we're recording.
and we're recording.
We're live.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna do my sexy late night radio voice, as Drew calls it.
Oh, what I was telling. I'm sorry. I was gonna say what I was telling Dan before. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What I was telling Dan beforehand, I was like, how funny would it be for the episode, like to where you run the Screen Smash intro, like you've been doing recently, the newer one.
Yeah.
But have us like do like the whispers into the mic. We just start going like Screen Smash, smashing, spoon, Konami skateboards.
This podcast is amazing.
This podcast is awesome. Sucks.
This podcast sucks.
Triple X Screen Smash coming at you live.
Damn it, Maria.
The viewer didn't know what they were listening to.
I see your feet.
I think that would be the funniest thing throughout the random parts of the episode. Dan just needs to go in on random parts and just start doing the narrator, or get Maria to do it, or Brandy. I don't care. It'd just be like the audience had no idea what they were listening to.
I did a bit of a narrator on the last episode too, because there was that bit where Louis did the joke of lifting up his Switch, and I had to like go in with VO and be like, in the usual Louis fashion, he picks up his Switch.
I think that'd be the funniest thing. Just go back and just throw in random comments as we're just talking about things.
Smash raw.
Smash.
You're an amazing podcast host. You could do this. You're a warrior.
They don't want to subscribe. Subscribe. Do it.
A sexy late night voice.
Subscribe for more.
There you go. All you got to do is edit that part right there, and it will be a pain. But just pick out all the words we've been whispering and just throw it in there.
That's good. I think he did that with the what was it? The merch thing. I just went merch, and then he got put into the bit merch. And just get you can't play anything in confidence around here because you'll get clipped.
Only you, Maria. Only you.
Screen Smash raw.
She's the one who wants to get banged.
You've been here for 5 minutes and you're already saying raw and smash in a sultry voice.
Smash.
Smash me.
I'm going to do the what's up, gamers? Welcome to Screen Smash. Not as sexy radio voice, but I'm your host, Dan Morris. Joining me this evening. No, it's getting weird. We have Maria Kinnun. Welcome back, Maria.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
And we got Jake Brown.
Totally tubular, man. I don't know. That came off very like dude bro.
Screen Smash. Welcome to the Screen Smash. Playing the top hits of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
I'm Dude Dan.
Dude Dan.
Dan Dude. Anyways, we're here tonight because we are going to talk about Hellblade 2. Wait, okay, that's enough of that.
You sound like Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan.
No,
No, I want to talk about Hellblade 2 because I fracking love Hellblade, and I was super duper excited for Hellblade 2, which finally dropped last week, and we all here have finally played through the game to completion, and we're here to tell you all about it. How many different voices can I throw in there? I'm not very good at those, but
All of them.
all of them. Let's build to talk about Hellblade.
Oh no!
Ah!
Let's
Drew's
go.
got
No,
lots
don't
of
do
like
that.
already
We're
told.
losing
No,
viewers by the
no.
minute. Stop it. Stop.
What viewers? Yeah. So, anyways, I would like to get us to start off by doing a quick little round about first impressions of Hellblade 2, kind of like your non-spoilerly, like this is my general thoughts of the game. Then we'll get into some of like the deeper bits about what we loved, maybe what we didn't love so much about the game. And then we can give our final, like, we're actually going to like break it down for everyone out there so you can hear our different opinions and takes on Hellblade 2 and why you should absolutely play it. Or not.
Should you?
Or not.
Or not.
What happens if we hate it?
Yeah. But play it anyways, even if you hate
hours sucked.
But anyway,
I ran through that game in 6 hours. Baloney.
that's the question I want to ask real quick. How
Sure.
long did it take all y'all to get through the game? Because there's a
8.5
lot of like,
hours.
you know, there's a lot of talk of this is a 5-hour game. Like, I don't know if y'all kept track or not, but I know me personally, it was maybe about 10 hours.
We can do that. We'll do that. Like, we'll make this a whole thing, like how long it took us to beat it. So, Maria, you said about 8.5 hours.
Mhm.
Jake, you're at around 10 to
Like
beat.
10, I guess.
Give or take.
I mean, 8 to 10, somewhere around there.
I think I was actually pushing. I don't know exactly what my total playtime was, but I want to say I was around 13 hours. But that's also because I took my sweet ass time. I was going real slow. I walked through the entire game. I spent a lot of time farting around with photo mode. I also watched like a lot of the documentary bits. Like there was a 30-minute or so documentary, which probably counted for my playtime. And then again, I just took my sweet time. So it took me a little longer, but I could probably go back and beat the game in a second playthrough in probably 8 hours, maybe.
Once I discovered I had a run button, I used it the whole time, and it was 8.5 hours. So I didn't really stop by for like collectibles and stuff. Like if I saw them on the road, I'd get them, but I wasn't looking for them. So I think 8.5 was about time. Yeah, there's no way you can beat this game in 5 hours. It's bullshit.
Yeah. And I got everything.
Yeah.
I got everything in my. I got all the collectibles. I got all the achievements. I did everything in about 13 hours.
Dang. Look at you, overachiever.
They made it easier in this one because in the first Hellblade, if you miss one of the collectible totems of Druth, you have to I think you have to restart the whole game unless they patch that later. Because in the new game, you can go to chapters and you can see where you missed stuff.
Right.
In the
They have that in the first one.
Did they? Okay, maybe they added it because I don't remember being able to do that originally.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember having to replay the whole game because I missed one.
No.
I was like,
But you love that game, so I mean, I guess it's fine.
I do. I played Hellblade 1 at least, I want to say, no less than half a dozen times.
I played it last night. It's pretty good.
Yeah. But yeah, let's do a quick, our like first impressions, like non-spoilerly take of what you guys thought of Hellblade 2. You want to start us off, Maria or Jake?
Yeah, sure.
My
Why
name's
not?
Maria, and
Go,
this
Maria.
is my review.
Jake, shut your face.
Hi, Maria.
Yeah, I mean, like the first thing I think they want you to notice is how visually impressive this game is, and I mean, you can't ignore it. Like, and for a game like, you know, Hellblade 2 coming from Ninja Theory, which is a relatively small studio, they are delivering like Naughty Dog level of quality with what this game looks like. I mean, it does look great, and so that's the first thing you see is just like it looks amazing, and the visuals and the sound and stuff. It's like it's just. You can see there's a lot of passion and a lot of work being put into this game, and you can't deny that. It definitely does stand above like usual games, you know, because it's just the attention to detail that they have, and it's just like it's not just a game; it's just like it's a visual and audio experience. And so going into it, like I played the first one, so I knew the second one was going to be decent, you know, so I had higher expectations of it. But yeah, I mean, from the moment you turn it on, you're like, yeah, you can tell there's quality in this game.
Yeah, no, like, definitely. I don't even know if I can like live up to what that you just described the entire thing.
I'm
No,
sorry.
like,
I haven't been here in a while.
I mean, so myself, I just played Hellblade 1 for the first time this past week. So like I was right off of 1 straight into 2. I think I finished the first one like 2 days after Hellblade 2 came out. And it's a crazy thing because I'm kind of conflicted on where I stand with 2. I'm not saying it's a bad game whatsoever, but like 1 had such like a personal story and like I felt like it hit me a little bit harder. And I started 2. I love the opening level. The opening level was amazing. Like the graphics. It's like what is it? Unreal Engine 5 that it's set in. Like the bar that they've set for games in the future. Oh my goodness, it's unreal. But unreal.
Unreal coming to you.
No, so like after like that first intro level, the story kind of took a different turn than what I thought it was going to be, and I kind of found myself kind of losing interest a little bit, but like it kind of like picked back up the further I went into the game, and I was like, okay, because my mind was already made up, maybe like 3 hours into it, going, this game is good, but it's nowhere near as good as the first one. But by the time I rolled credits on the second one, I was like, you know what? Like, I thought it was one thing, but it turned out to be something completely different. And this game made me guess more about essentially like what is real and what's not, due to like her mental illness and whatnot, which I didn't really think about that in the first game. So like the second game made me think a whole lot more, because I love especially these games like this. As soon as you beat the game, going online to like Reddit, reading all these fan theories and stuff like that, it gives you a whole new perspective on the story and essentially what is real and what's not.
And also as well, a game like this, because it relies so heavily on psychosis and like real mental illness, it's a very adult game. So it's something that's very serious. And so like the fact that like you can really look into it and go, yeah, this is a real thing. You know, you can tell that they've done their research and stuff. So it's just, it's more of a mature game where you can look further into it and go, yeah, the depth of her, you know, the character and the story in Hellblade 1 and Hellblade 2, it just has a lot more interest where you could look into the lore. And it's just, you know, yeah, it's just one of those games that's like, it's very adult and mature. It's not for Fortnite players. Sorry. No offense against Fortnite players. I don't know anyone.
Jake.
I was looking for a freaking The Rock skin in the item shop, but it's not there. Where's the item shop? And
where's Snake?
Where's my big booty Snake?
I mean, that's why
it wasn't there.
It needs customizable skins. I want to run around like Spider-Man in Hellblade.
Right.
Use your braids.
DLC.
Give me 80 different skins that I can wear at any time.
I want to run alone like a potato. No.
But I want to go ahead and give my quick review here, especially not my review, but my summary. As far as I've been very vocal in the past about how much I absolutely adore Hellblade 1. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And it's such a personal experience, like you said, Jake. And going into Hellblade 2, I didn't know what to expect. I wrote an article about Hellblade 2 back in 2021. I had this whole like crazed theory of like, will Hellblade 2 be God of War for Xbox? And most people responded to that article like, no, you're full of shit. Like, yeah, maybe, but who knows? They could have gone either way with it. But within the first, 30 minutes of playing the game, it hit me that this is still Hellblade. They didn't, remake the they didn't
reinvent the wheel.
Reinvent the wheel. Thank you. That's the phrase I was using. They didn't reinvent the wheel. It's still Hellblade. It still feels like Hellblade. The gameplay is much the same. It still has the exact same pacing and style and storytelling. The only thing that's really changed is the technology, which is fan-freaking-tastic. They use that really cool facial capture technology where all the faces are like hyper-realistic, and it makes you just lose yourself trying to like, you can't tell what's real, what's not. It's really hard to tell. And god damn, the freaking environments are jaw-droppingly good. They're probably the best environments I've seen in any single video game. They're like the most realistic looking environments because of how they did the 3D scans in Iceland and how they've purposed them in the game. And the story, like you said, like it starts off on a really high note, then it kind of comes down a bit. But when you really think about, and if you understand Senua and her story and how Hellblade 1 ended going into Hellblade 2, you realize that she kind of starts utilizing her psychosis almost as like a superpower. and then that leans really heavy into the mythology that they've weaved into the game. And I love everything about that. It's definitely not like, oh yeah, comparing it to Hellblade 1 is tough because Hellblade 1 is great in so many ways, but not as good in others. And then Hellblade 2 is really great in some ways, but maybe not as good in others too. So yeah, very high on it. We'll get into like the nitty gritty here in a little bit. And before we do that, I need to ask you guys, did you play with headphones?
Yes.
Of course.
And did you have
Of course.
subtitles on?
Yeah, of course. And I was
Yes.
terrified. I can't do
Yeah.
that. Like, oh my goodness. Anxiety. I already have anxiety. I don't need more, but I did it anyway.
I had to have subtitles on because I'm old and I can't hear shit. So I just wanted to make sure that I could understand what was actually being said. But yeah, I had headphones on and both. So,
but I
you have
want
to with this
I
game.
want to mention the subtitles specifically because I put the subtitles on too, just because that's typically how I play the game. Mostly because I want to make sure that I understand what I'm hearing, especially if they're words that I'm not familiar with, and there are a few of those in the games like Hellblade. And the first thing I notice, and I absolutely adore that they did this, Hellblade is presented in the like really long, like 2x33. I forget the exact aspect ratio, but it's got the black bars on the bottom and top. It's super hyper cinematic. But when you have subtitles on, every character that's on screen when they speak, you see their subtitles within the frame of the screen. But when the voices that Senua hears speak, you see them outside of the box in the black space. And I think that's such a great, nuanced, and clever idea and way to do the subtitles.
It's kind of like they're not in reality, they're outside reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like, it gave me goosebumps the first time I kind of made that connection. Like, oh my God, like the voices are outside of the reality of the game itself.
Yeah, that's kind of genius, actually. I never thought that. But yeah,
Right?
I did notice that they were at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're
Ben and I were talking about that last night.
they're
And I was like,
directional.
yeah.
So like you hear the one voice on the left and the other voice on the right, and their subtitles are respective. They don't just, it's not just all subtitles on top of each other. So the subtitles are super strategic based on what you're hearing and where you're hearing it from, on top of that amazing 3D audio that they have, which is just, I don't know why more games don't do this. The 3D audio. It's been great since the first game.
So that's one of the things, even from the first game, that just caught me. Those inner voices. It's just, it's so creepy.
Yeah.
But like the fact that they just kind of berate you for the entire game. They're a little more polite in this game. They're a little bit more supportive. And I'm like, you guys are like cheerleaders now. They're like, go Senua, go. In the first game, they're like, you fucking suck.
You suck.
They're a lot more supportive in this game.
You're gonna die.
Yeah, they're like, you suck. You should go away. And yeah, it is. But yeah, it's But yeah, no, that
it's very unsettling.
Yeah. And
the entire game.
It's beautiful too, because it's jarring, it's unsettling, and you have the voices essentially they're basically anything and everything that you as a person might think during the events of what's happening. It's the inner monologue. And I kind of relate this to how old Uncharted used to do that, where Nathan Drake would speak out loud things he was thinking. And I was like, oh, I was thinking that. But this takes it to like a whole nother level, because they're always looking at everything from both sides of the coin. It's always like, you're a strong warrior, you can do this. Like, no, you're going to fucking die.
I found sometimes a little critique. Sometimes they came in a little bit too quick on the puzzles.
Sometimes, yeah.
And yeah, so like I'd go in and I haven't even noticed the puzzle part, and they were like, oh, she needs to look at it from a different angle. And I'm like, oh, it's right there then. Like, and you've just told me where.
They do that on the very first puzzle immediately.
Yeah, I think it's more of a I think it's more of a kind of like a tutorial type thing that they're trying to tell you.
Yeah. And I know I saw other people criticizing the game for making the puzzles too easy this time around. And I immediately, the first thing I thought was how hard the first game got criticized because the puzzles were too hard. Like there was people
puzzles
who
are long in the first game.
Yeah, there's people who couldn't figure out where to look at the symbols.
Entire levels to do them. But I did, I mean, the puzzles in the second one, they are easier, but yeah, it's but big. I think it's because they're trying to hold your hand to,
I liked them so much better in the second one. I hated the first game's puzzles. I hate it. Like, if anything was to turn me off of that game, it was the puzzles in the first one. I was like, no, I've got to push through, got to do it.
Yeah, it's like some of those puzzles, if you don't know what you got to do, you can get stuck on them for a good while, and that can get frustrating. So that's probably like a lot of people are like, oh, like this sucks. But yeah, like the audio in the game is top notch. And oh my God, when you hear Senua's father's voice,
Oh,
with
he sounds like
headphones.
Candyman.
Oh my god! Like, and it's that low, gargly, rumbly voice, and it's so unnerving, and just like, like
Love
it's
it.
so good.
I think one of the reason why they made the puzzles not as complicated, I think because this one, it felt like they were trying to keep the player focused on the story more than, and they didn't want the player getting distracted by a puzzle for like an hour and forgetting what the actual story was. So I think they were just kind of like, look, this is how you do it. Move on. It's a puzzle, not a way of life.
Yeah, I was going to say that too,
yeah.
to go into the discussion of the puzzles specifically. Like, most of them aren't too bad. Like, they're not the most difficult puzzles. It's a lot of just like, once you know what you got to do, you figure it out. It takes a little bit of time. Like, okay, this and this and that, and you got it. But I agree. I think they simplified the puzzles to keep the player moving and keep them going, because if nothing else, Senua's Saga is a very story-centric, cinematic, narrative experience. Not as much of like a video game. It's like I kept thinking about things like Hideo Kojima while playing that game and how he makes his games, where it's like Death Stranding. I don't feel like I'm playing a video game when I'm playing Death Stranding, you know. But obviously, Death Stranding has more gameplay than Senua does. But I think that was a big part of why they kind of dialed back the puzzles.
I think maybe as well is because the tone of the game is so serious because of what you're dealing with. They want to keep the player at that level of seriousness and kind of sadness. They don't want to be like doing a puzzle. So I think they actually want to keep the player in that moment of that kind of tenseness that she's experiencing, rather than like, oh, I gotta do this shit for an hour. So yeah, I understand it. I like puzzles, so I kind of missed it a little bit. I
love
mean, it gets better
puzzles.
as the game goes on. It gets a little bit more complicated, but I was just kind of like, oh, I wish it was a little bit more thingy. But yeah, no, it was. I mean,
I think you could also go into the notion that in the first game, Senua is dealing with her own mental illness and struggles and her darkness. So she is she's learning how to understand her own mental health issues in the first game. And that's part of the struggle, and that's part of the puzzle. In the second game, she's kind of figured it out. She has a better handle and understanding. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, I got to find the symbols. Cool. There's one. Here we go. You know, and like a lot of the struggle in the second game is more of her interacting with other people, because in the first game, you didn't interact with anyone. There was no other people in the first game. The second people.
That is true. Yeah.
I was expecting it kind of like go to the Dead Space route. Like, oh, there's people. Oh, they're gonna die. Like, I finally have a person I'm with. Oh, now they're dead. Like, that's what I was expecting. But I really like the companions and whatnot, and especially after you beat the game, the narrator's voice. You can listen to all your different companions.
I haven't done that yet.
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
that's cool.
I did it for like 5 minutes last night, and I was talking to Dan, and I was like, this is amazing because it's so much more replayability.
Yeah, it's nice that they added just even that smallest little extra to encourage you to play the game again, because I got all the Druth totems of all the lore, and you unlock Druth as your narrator if you do that. So I actually really like Druth and his voice and the way he talks. So that was the first one I did, was put Druth on and started playing through the new game. And I appreciated that, because when you start the game normally, you have the voices in her head, but then you've got the narrator, and they all kind of sound the same. So it's sometimes hard to tell who's talking. And when you have a different narrator, it's like, this is the narrator speaking now. I know this. I can tell. I
mean, I completely disagree with Maria about the puzzles. I hated them. I hated puzzles. I'm super happy. I'm super happy they were easier in the second one, because I admit I had to look up like one or two in the first game, like walkthroughs for like, all right, just where is it? And I couldn't find it. But the second one, I felt like they did make it almost a little too easy though, because I felt like they actually had that, like when you were looking for the symbols, they were glowing, like they were like almost like that Naughty Dog yellow almost. And I don't remember that in the first game.
No, the first ones you went to, it was like the sticks were red with blood, and you're like, well, those are the ones I'm going to look at, you know. And it was like they'd have yellow moss on them, so it was like Naughty Dog yellow, just like these are the ones you're looking at.
I mean, at least
the first one,
it
was
makes
like literally a shadow
sense.
or something that you had to see. So yeah, it was they definitely made it a little bit more obvious. But I think it's just because.
But again, people were pissing and moaning about the first game being too hard with the puzzles, so they were like, you know, we'll give people a bone. I love puzzles too, so I'm a little sad that there weren't as many puzzles in this one, but it's hard to be mad when the game was just so damn enthralling. And
I'm just happy we didn't have the one. I'm gonna butcher it, but was it like famine or death? I can't remember the one in the first game, but it was like you had a line like all the eagles or buzzards up or something.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly like what it was, but I struggled with that for like almost a good hour, and I was like, you know
You have
what?
to rearrange like the entire level to try
you
and
have
get
to go through like the portals and look at
Yeah.
things from a different angle, and like okay, I gotta go through here.
What's going on, man? I just want to play a game. I don't need puzzles.
See, I
My
love
head's already
that.
jacked up. I don't need it even more. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they got their point across because that's what they're going for, right?
I mean, the second game has similar
almost
puzzle
feel
set,
like
but they're
Senua.
like easier versions with the way you shift the plane of existence in the second game, because they do
Yeah.
like the mirroring.
I just kind of wish, at some point Atreus would show up and be like, the puzzle's over there.
Like, thanks, Atreus. But I also like with the puzzles too, where it was this concept of Senua is seeing alternate realities, or she's seeing reality differently, so she's able to proceed or do things that other people can't do because they don't perceive it the way she does. And like the way the game constantly grounds things in some semblance of her psychosis. And again, like it almost makes it seem like she's got a superpower. And it's Fafnir. Is that how you say his name?
I think so. I'm gonna butcher everybody's name, so I'm not gonna try to say anybody's name in this game.
But he calls her a seer. Like a mythical title of some sort. Like you got special abilities. So I just love how they always do that. They always ground everything down into some logical sense of like, she's able to do this because she can see things that other people can't, to some extent.
I think the reason why a lot of people are kind of, and I understand with the critical about the puzzle length and easiness, is because a lot of the game is, because it's very story focused, it is kind of like a bit of a walking cutscene where there's a lot of walks, pushing the stick forward and walking while the other characters are talking and stuff. And so the puzzle's kind of the only parts you really get to do. Like I can play now. They've let me on the stick and I can do stuff. And it seems to be over very quickly. And then you're kind of back to walking behind someone and they're talking. And it's kind of, so I think it's that kind of like the first game had those big open level areas. So when you were in the story mode and a lot of walking, you'd already had that big level rearranging part. But with this, there was a lot of walking and talking, and the person thing is a lot of storyline where you have to listen. So I think the puzzles were a break from that, and because they were very simple, it was kind of like get back to the game, back to the game, back to the game, get back to listening to someone walk and talk. And it was kind of like I wanted to play the game. So that was one of my things, is sometimes I just found it a little bit too the interactiveness was rushed quickly, so you could get back to walking on the stick and listening to someone talk. So I think that might be what people were critical about with that.
I want to go ahead and I'm going to call myself out here because I've openly talked about how I didn't like God of War Ragnarok because they talk too much. And I'm like, just shut up and let me kill things. Now, granted, this sounds very hypocritical. I don't have that problem with Hellblade, but that's because Hellblade, that's the game. That's more what you're supposed to do, is sit there and enjoy the story and take in the conversations. The puzzling and the combat is secondary to that. Whereas God of War has always been murder things, and then maybe there's some story, and then murder things, and then you have sex with some ladies, and then you murder things.
That circle.
Sounds like a normal day out for me. I mean,
But I had issues with God of War Ragnarok just being like, oh my God, shut up, or like you said, Atreus comes on and goes, what's the puzzles over there? Like, shut up, Atreus. Like, the one thing I get to do, the one thing.
So no, I do agree with Maria in terms of like it is kind of a walking simulator, because the entire time I'm holding left bumper and up on the like on the directional pad or whatever, D-pad, thumbstick, sorry. But the difference is, in the first game I was doing the same thing, but I was also mashing A at all times. Because the thing that I kind of think the first game did better with, and it kind of gave me a little bit more like on my toes, kept me more tensed up, was when enemies would come out at you in the first one, they would just automatically come out of nowhere and just hit you.
Yeah,
so like, you need to be ready to dive and roll. So that's why I was always just hitting A kind of randomly, just like, all right, I don't know what's around this corner. The second one, anytime an enemy comes up, it's always like a little cutscene of shoulder tackle. Okay, all right, now you're in combat.
You would also, as well, you would walk into like an open arena, and you knew you were going to get attacked.
There's combat coming.
Yeah, you knew it was coming. So there was like a part further on where you're walking through like, a forest or something. You're like, no one's going to attack me because I'm walking through a forest and there's no open arenas. So you kind of had that sense of like, that it's kind of like what I was thinking, the game felt a little scripted, a bit where it was kind of predictable about where the fight scenes were going to be, and just kind of restricted in that way where it was just like you knew you weren't going to get ambushed. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to walk along the thing.
But again, you can also draw a comparison there. In Hellblade 1, the enemies that Senua was fighting, were they real? Were they figments of her imagination?
I don't know. They punched me in the face a few times.
You can say the same thing about 2, though. Like I said, I was looking up a bunch of stuff last night after I beat it.
As far as you know, she was actually murdering like Northmen.
Yes.
Though, but the
Instead
Draugr,
of,
though,
like-
the Draugr is like, are they real?
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. If we can talk about things I didn't like compare the first one to the second. I don't know if you want to.
Well, I wanted to touch on maybe the combat
But-
first, and then
And that's exactly what I want to talk about.
Okay, well that works
That's
then.
exactly what I want to talk about. I think there's something Hellblade 1 did better with, in my personal opinion. I love the combat in 1 over 2.
Yeah, I did.
2 was a little too personal. Like 1, I felt surrounded. Like the second game, you fought just one-on-one the entire time. And then as soon as you killed one enemy, like I said, you get shoulder tackled. Oh, okay, get back up. Here's another enemy. Or the first one, it was like you hear the voices in your head. It's like, oh, don't let them get behind you. And like you hear them like, oh, get out of the way, move. And
You
so
would get
like,
surrounded.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like it gave me a sense of just like fear of like, oh my goodness, all right, where are they at? All right, gotta make sure. I also felt like the
Yeah.
combat in the second one, it wasn't as fluid as the first one, but it also in some ways felt a little easier. Like I felt like the build up your focus felt a whole lot easier in the second one than it did in the first.
You also played it on easy difficulty, though, right?
I did.
That could be why, because I didn't
I'm a
have that
loser,
easy
and
of a
I
time with
do
the
that.
combat, so I died
But
plenty.
My favorite move in the first game, which I think I've only seen the animation like once in the second one, I like the running like sword poke dive.
Yeah, because that's a move you can do where you just run and then attack and stab him in the face.
But I couldn't figure out how to do it in the second one.
You can
and I
still
was
run
like,
and attack in the second game, but she doesn't do like the jumping stab. I
Yeah.
think.
That's if you can't do it, then what's the point?
But it's funny
Yeah,
because.
no,
Oh, go ahead, Maria.
I was gonna say, yeah, no, I agree with Jake. The fight scenes in the first one, I felt like there was a part where you could just walk back and like circle the enemies and kind of get them in your sight, so you could get them so they weren't surrounding you. So it was a little bit more of a kind of like realistic fight scenario where you could just be like, I don't want them to surround me. But this one was very up and close and personal, and it was just like sometimes the camera got so close I couldn't actually see what was going on because you had them like right in the camera, and it was just like I was button mashing A and Y the entire time because I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it was kind of like it didn't feel like you were being bombarded with multiple. It felt like it was like a Bruce Lee movie that they come running in one at a time. But I feel like the first one, the game was kind of like the fights felt a little bit more natural and a little bit more easy flowing, and it was more like a kind of just it didn't feel like such. I'm not scripted, but it didn't feel so kind of like.
You knew exactly what was happening.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, you're fighting this guy now, fight him, next guy, fight him. It was more like there's an arena and you have to, surround yourself. I thought the fight scenes in the first one were a bit better.
I missed the kick button.
Yeah.
That's like I love the kick button for that. Like the enemies in the first game, you would kick their shields or whatever, and then you can hit them. And I was like, "Where's my kick button? They don't have it. They don't have that. They don't have my little jumpy stab. What is this?"
I wanted
This
to
is
say though, as much as I agree with you guys that the combat in the first game definitely had more fluidity and the anxiety because you could get surrounded by enemies, and then you got to kind of like I would do the same thing you were talking about, Maria, where I'd back off and try to make sure I can see them all and be like, okay, I'm gonna go for this guy, and then I got to worry about that guy and try to make sure they're not getting behind me. And I think that in comparison to the second game, yes, it is more one-on-one. It's less. You don't have to worry about other combatants. You don't have to have that. You're focused on the one enemy. But those fights were so much more dynamic in the second game because of how they're coordinated and orchestrated, especially with like the fights for me were very exhaustive because I was playing on dynamic difficulty, and it was a lot of times where I'm like, I'm just barely getting through each fight, and then it'd be like, oh my god, there's another one, and then like I just barely get through that one. Then like, oh my god, there's another one, and then every time I fought one of the dudes with the fire, 9 times out of 10,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got burned alive. And I was like, I can't
Yeah.
get away from the fire.
I saved my focus for those
Yeah, I had to
guys.
save my focus for the fire guys. But I love and love and love that in the second game, the insanely intense and dynamic like finishing attacks. Like they were so different. There were so many different varieties of watching Senua like drive her sword like through their rib cage or in their face or chopping their back open. Or like there was all these really cool, like intense, like just watching dudes die brutally. And then it almost always transitioned to like, oh no, somebody's like crashing into you, or there's another guy who tackles you, or somebody else is like, help me, and you go to get them, and then they get murdered just as you get there, and you're like, shit, you know.
I feel like as well there was a lot more emphasis on the second game. Like in the first the fight scenes, you were just beating the shit out of people, and you were like, I'm a badass. Yeah, you were just like, wah. But in the second game, I think they emphasized more that Senua, not weak, but that she was, you know, being overpowered by these massive guys. And the fact that like when you did the parry, like you could time that to do right. But even when you did it, it felt like you failed because the guys, even though you stopped the sword, you were on your back foot. You were getting overpowered at all times. So I think it came across well that she's a young woman and she's being overpowered by these big guys. And I think it adds to that whole, like, she's outnumbered, you know, basically with these going against forces bigger than her type thing. So the cinematics were amazing for the fight scenes. But yeah, I just feel like I just like to beat the shit out of people without any resistance, really.
Well, that's where like you got to play more of a button masher in that sense too, because even in Senua's delivery of her attacks and in her sounds that she makes, like she sounds exhausted. She looks exhausted, and like the way she like does that, like "Row!" Like she sounds like a fucking puma screaming as she's swinging at these dudes.
I do like in the first one though is that when you go up against those guys with the Haarmsa, they immediately put their sword out and they're like, "Come at me, bro," and then you're like, "Come at me, bro." So you do that little walk towards each other and you're just like, "Yeah, come at me, bro." I was just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna beat."
I do love trying to get the parries. Like I was like, I go for the parries as much as I can, but
because it feels cool.
It feels
I was
great.
the opposite. I evaded like all the time. Like I very rarely parried.
But the thing too is the enemies have those strong attacks, and if you parry the strong attacks, you only block it. You don't parry it. You just block it and keep yourself from getting hit. And that's where the Furies will come in and be like, "You're getting overpowered. You know, you got to be faster. You're faster than them." And they're kind of like training you on how to fight the enemy. You know, with what they're saying, especially like they're hard as stone. Like you got to hit harder. And it's like, oh, I need to use the hard attack. You know.
Yeah, I noticed as well, like when, especially later on in the game, where there are those enemies that are giving you the big Shakespeare speeches as you're fighting. No matter how well you do with those fights, the fight will not end until they've finished that dialogue. So you have to just keep getting your ass kicked the entire time. Because I noticed there was the guy, you know, the guy right at the end where he's doing his big.
I literally just stopped attacking him and just stood back and listened.
Yeah, because you're just you're hammering at him and he keeps beating you up, but he's not. You're not going to win the fight until he's finished that dialogue. So there's no point in just keep running at him. So it's kind of that scripted thing where you're like, I'm just going to stand there.
I don't think you're supposed to fight him. I think you're just supposed to let him monologue, and then you can run in after he's done talking. Like, all right, shut up and die now.
No, I was fighting him the whole time, and I was like, this is going on forever.
As soon as he got really weak and like stopped attacking, I stopped attacking and just stood back and waited.
I'm button mashing.
I'm gonna say what I need to say. I'm not gonna die.
I need to say this. Is there anything about Hellblade 2 that you guys like loved, like your absolute like favorite thing?
I did like the cave level. I mean, it wasn't not my. I mean, I wouldn't say it was my favorite thing, but it was one of those moments that I was like, "Nah, this is cool." Yeah. You know, like it reminded me of The Descent. You know, there was that kind of those moments where you were really enclosed and you were climbing through those little things, and there was those demon guys that were all crawling around, and you were in the dark.
Flesh eaters.
Yeah, it was just. I think because it was such a different terrain from you walking around in the
pretty
Nordic
scary
area
too.
Yeah, because you were in the dark, you know, so that was kind of like, that was an area that I was like, okay, that was a part that was like, I did get a little bit like bored as the game was going on when I got to like, you know, walking through the forest, listen to someone talk. But then when it got to that point, I was like, the game took a turn for me where it started be going like, oh, this is cool because this has got like that element of just, you are on the stick and you're not so restricted anymore. And just going through those caves and stuff, like, going under that, I had to hold your breath and go underneath the water and stuff. And I was just kind of like, yeah, this is cool. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah. It's a great framework for like just a horror game in general. And that's what I kept thinking the whole time through that. I was like, this would make a great horror game.
Yeah, right.
Just that experience.
And the ending dialogue, but we'll get to that when we. I don't want to. Yeah.
So like, I was curious. I mean, I guess it's a little off topic, but it's involving like that forest level. There was a decision at what point, like, who do you walk toward? Because like, there's a split path. You can walk toward either one of your companions. I accidentally walked toward one, not knowing I had the choice yet, until like I already climbed the little cliff as the narrator was just like, you can only choose one path.
Did it make a difference though?
Yeah, I don't think it did.
I don't think it did. But then I was also a little confused too, because after that you find the guy. I'm gonna butcher his name. I don't know. I'm just gonna call him Thor because I can't remember his name. He was awesome, cool guy.
Yeah.
No, but it's like you caught up with him after, and like I don't really know if they explained it, where he's just like, oh, like I had a vision or something of I know what I must do. And like, did it go into that? Did it fly over my head?
I just assumed it went into he was guilty about the things he had done, and that's why he had to confront his father. That's a kind of that's for the way I went, because as soon as it led to him talking to his father, that I just assumed that was what it was. But I never explained to, like, because he said I had to do something or whatnot, and you're like, well, what did you do? Did you kill a squirrel? What happened?
No, I think it's just it gives you something different to like the way that plays out. So if you do one path and then you go back and do the other path, I think it just plays out slightly different in some of the dialogue you get between the two characters. But otherwise, I don't think it has any real like longing effects. And then the ending part with Thor, yeah, I think he's seeing the vision about like what he needs to do ultimately. So
I wonder if you go back and play through with the different narrators, would it explain certain scenes better?
Maybe like, it will actually. Maybe the other character will acknowledge that you picked the other person or something. Like I don't know.
Because it said something like in the beginning, when it showed Thor. People are probably like hating us right now. They're like, that's not his name. No, but it was like, oh, Senua wasn't the only person who like hears things or has visions or something. So like it kind of seems like if you play longer, he'll kind of make comparisons maybe to his life. So maybe he will explain that scene. I'm curious what the whole like Druth dialogue would be like. That's
Druth is cool. I like Druth.
I didn't even know that was an option until Dan told me yesterday.
Yeah. So I think you're talking about Fargrimir.
No.
Okay,
no.
so you're talking about
the guy's son.
The slaver.
The slaver. There you go.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the names down. It's Thorgester.
It's
Thor. Thorgester.
Thor for sure.
So but it's heavily insinuated that Fargrimir also has something, like he's got something, because he senses Senua before he even sees her, and he knows that she hears voices. Like he's cognizant of her state of mind to some degree. And then of course Thorgester has the darkness. He has the darkness that Senua had in the first game, so he's currently going through what she went through essentially in the first game, and his darkness is probably his father as well, but we're going real deep into like spoiler of the actual story here.
Is that not what we're doing?
Holocaust.
Is that not what we're doing?
We're absolutely spoilering. This is all spoiler. I wasn't trying to not spoil. I'm just saying now we're getting deep into it when I was trying to talk about like our favorite things and not so favorite things. So
one of the things I would say with like the like choices and like the fact that choice made no difference at all is, and it's not really a choice, but I feel like it was one of the reasons why I felt like the game was restricting, is that when you were walking along, like especially right at the first part, you were walking and then you see the guy like beating up somebody by the boat, and then the Furies will go, oh, walk slow, but don't get seen, Senua, and you don't have a choice.
You literally can't.
You think it will slow you down, and so you don't get the choice to run up and fuck around and find out. You can just go. There's no option to do that. So I kind of felt a little irritated that it kept taking me off the stick. When it told me to do something, it kept taking me off the stick and not letting me do the opposite, or just giving me the option to do the opposite. Like I found the same thing because I actually did some test runs of some areas to see if it actually did restrict me after I played the game. and there's the part where you're underneath the boat and the water comes in, and the guy grabs you by the feet. And I, first of all, when on my playthrough, I was pushing the button and I was like, oh, get off me, get off me, get off me, and stuff. The second time, I just dropped the controller and she doesn't drown.
Oh, yeah, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, but you think you do. And it's kind of like...
the only time you actually have to do any button inputs and those kind of things is when the screen starts getting all mushy and squishy and like you see like splintering. That's the game telling you that you need to do something.
But yeah, but it's
still... The game looks like a freaking movie. Like
exactly. You don't know the time that you're supposed to do stuff. And there was the other part with the village that's on fire. Like there's a part, there's the cliff edge, and as you walk along, there's guys below you, and they're kind of like, don't be seen, be quiet and stuff. And you're walking along that fish, and I stopped, and
they don't see you.
I was like, they don't see you at all. And they said, I was like, I wonder if I could go back. And it wouldn't let me go back. It froze my stick, and I actually pushed backwards, and it walked me forward. So it wouldn't give me the choice to actually go forward. So it's one of those, like it says, don't get seen. So you don't actually have the choice to go, oh, I need to sneak this part or something. Or there is a part where she hides behind a thing, and there's a guy like, and the head rolls down and stuff like that, and she's like hiding. And you would think that would be a perfect part where you could do a bit of a sneaky, like I can't be seen. They don't give you the option to do a sneaky and get smashed in the face and fuck out and find out.
So,
they just don't give you that. It's like, it just kind of feels like they take away any of your power to make sure that you don't play the game any differently to how they intend it. And I think that's why it feels restrictive, because they don't give you a choice to play the game how you want to play it. And I understand it's a small studio and they're focusing on, like, they don't want people fucking around and you're kicking chickens or anything. They just want you to play the game.
Fable.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just, to me, I just felt like, it's keep taking me off the stick when you're giving me a choice or giving me an action to do. I'm like, can you trust that I'm going to do it, please? Mm-hmm. Like, it just felt a little restricted. That's all.
So I want to go ahead and take the lead on this, as far as I wanted us to talk about what we would like to have seen in this game, or at least what we would like to see if they do another game. And from you, that sounds like you want a more intuitive game experience with more like actual gameplay ability. And that was something I theorized in my article that I wrote about Hellblade and its potential. And like I said, when I first booted it up, I was like, oh, this is the same. Like, it's still Hellblade. They didn't, reinvent the wheel. I didn't know what they were going to do. They could have taken Hellblade in a whole different direction. They could have made it this big bombastic adventure like a God of War 2018 or Ragnarok. And I didn't know what I wanted, honestly, going into it. I was afraid. I'm like, if they go too hard, like, we're going to make it like God of War, I'm worried that it might not be good like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want it too. I want it to be like that. I want it to be immersive. I want it to be deep.
When I went back and played the first game, the first thing I did when you're kind of walking up that waterfall thing and you go across the cross beams and you're doing the thing, and I was like, can you fall off? And I just let it fall off. And I was like, so you go, there's a choice. I can fall off of something. I can actually die. The problem, like, with these games, and I think it was the reason why I didn't like Stray, was because it never gave you the choice to fail. You didn't have the choice to fuck up and find out. I
died a lot, so.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like, when you're walking across the beam, you were like, well, if I'm not paying attention, I'm going to fall over. But if you can't fall off a cliff, or you can't run into an enemy and he beats the shit out of you, even if you run up to an enemy and you couldn't fight him and he just twats you in the face, you're like, at least you had the option where you should have listened to your inside head. It's just, but I get that they have to program AI to do that, to react to you being stupid. And that's not something that it costs money to do things like that. But that's just, going forward, that's something that I would like a little bit more of, just a little bit more kind of like the gamer has control, like it's a game kind of thing.
I mean, I kind of agree with that. And like at certain points, I felt like it kind of switched it, because like the cave section, when I was like, that was far enough into the game.
Oh yeah, I fell off the thing, and the guys were
no, exactly, because I'm like, this game's not going to kill me by because like you said during that like the Drager section or whatever, and like the guy like gets pushed against like this wall, and you can clearly see him. And it's like, oh my goodness, like, watch out. And like the guy comes up to the guy and like kills him. Like, I'm going to walk right past you. And it's like, he clearly could have seen me if this was a game that allowed that choice of happening. But
yeah, there was a guy on the other side of the fence, and I stood right there, and he was there, and he did not see me because obviously he's not programmed to see me. But I was like, you could see me if this was, you would be able to see me.
So with like enough of those, choices, by the time you made it to that cave level, I'm just running because I'm like, I'm not gonna die off of something that okay, like I'm not as scared as I wasn't toward the beginning of the game, and then it's just like, boop, fall into the water, boop, die. Oh my god! Okay, no, I guess
you get like murdered by a bunch of naked slippery men. You're like, oh shit. That's what I mean. The game, it changed it up on you, like later on in the game, and then you're like, okay, this is more of what I want.
Like the stakes are real again.
And then it goes right back to the cave levels.
We can all remember the cave level fondly of like, this is like Senua when it got real.
It got real. You had to be there. Yeah.
But I love that section too, and I also want to shout out the boss fights with the giants, especially Iltoiga.
Yes.
Iltoiga's level, I wasn't expecting that. It was intense. It was brutal. I told Maria, I'm like, this is like the most metal thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because it felt like you were playing like a music video, and like it gave me all these vibes of like old Ninja Theory games, because like they did DMC, Devil May Cry, and you hear that like Iltoiga in the background, like and I'm like, oh my god, this is so intense, and you're running and trying to avoid the explosions and not hit the lava, and it's just like that part was awesome. Like I really love that part.
I really like that. That was one part I was like, okay, because I don't like boss fights. I don't like the whole like you have to swing a sword against this giant monster, because I'm just like, this is tedious. So the idea that they made it different, where they were like, you have to run and hit the chains and stuff and run through the fire. I thought that was kind of cool. I was kind of hoping they would have changed it up for the second giant, because you kind of did the same
essentially
thing,
the same
really.
thing.
Yeah. And the invisible walls kind of pissed me off a little bit, that there was like areas that you couldn't run up because there was an invisible wall there. And I got caught a few times on that first part where I didn't realize you had to grab the ring, and I was running straight ahead, and there was a hill, and I was thinking you could run up that hill and escape the wave. And they were like, no invisible barrier. And you're like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, so that didn't happen to me. So
you have to be forced to grab the ring, and then you're just kind of like, but yeah, I was determined to run up the hill, but it wasn't a hill, apparently.
I thought it was very interesting though how you fought like those boss battles with the giants, because like I low key was thinking like we were talking about gonna go full on Kratos God of War, like, all right, here we go. I guess I'm chopping this thing's head off, like, here we go.
Get those blades of chaos out.
But no, I definitely ran face first into like the volcanic explosion like 3 times before I realized. I was like, I can just hide behind a rock.
I was like, oh yeah, there's a rock. Yeah, no, I thought that was really cool, the whole breaking the chains thing.
Yeah,
I was like,
it was a different take on a boss battle, because you were kind of like fighting them in their mind, and you weren't really like physically fighting them so much. It's just a really cool, unique take, and it's a visual treat too, just the way they presented it and did all of that. And I wanted to at least say that, if nothing else, I'm hoping that with Hellblade 2, this opens doors for more, because I absolutely love what these guys are doing. I love the way they develop the games. I love the technology they're putting into it. I love the performances. Like, oh my god, there's so many times like playing Hellblade 1 and 2, like I kind of like tear up pretty hard, because it's just like it's so emotionally impactful, and just the way everything comes together hits me hard. Not to mention, they're doing all of this on a game that they're only asking like $40 for the original game when it first came out, $50 for the new game, brand new. Like, it's this insane, visual feast. Yeah, again, it's a shorter experience. It's not as well fleshed out, but I also appreciate it for those reasons. I appreciate that the game is shorter and not you have to play for 100 hours and then there's DLC for another 100 hours. And I'm like, I'm never going to beat that game. I'm never going to finish that game. I appreciate this game for being short and sweet and giving me a condensed experience that I can get through in a few sittings or less,
And it's a dramatic experience where it's like bam, 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 bam. It's like it has its slow moments, but when the big moments come, the big moments come. It's very dynamic.
It's not like when I try to play an Assassin's Creed game and I talk to someone that I haven't talked to in 10 to 15 hours, and I'm like, "Who are you? Why are you important? Why am I here?" What is going on?
They're like, "I left my sock in the castle across the map, and you have to go get it." And you're like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
The quest of the dirty sock.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful that this at least will enable Ninja Theory to keep doing what Ninja Theory does, because they make amazing games. I love all of Ninja Theory's games. I'm a big fan of theirs. I've been championing them for years. I have one of their like old original like Xbox games before they were even called Ninja Theory, and I'm just happy to see these guys being able to do what they do best. I know
That's
they've been.
crazy.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, and they're like a team of what, like 80 something people.
80.
That's crazy to think about. Like,
Yeah, and they've got other projects they're working on too.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Like I understand. Like, yeah, the game. How long did it take? 7 years for them to make it.
If they started it immediately after one, yeah,
like that's a long time. Yeah, but I'm like 89 people. That's crazy.
Yeah,
like that's some talent right there.
Yeah.
And then you have all these other companies like GTA. Yeah, that's right. I'm saying it. Like it's been how long? And and how big is your studio?
Konami,
and
just saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I'm really hopeful that this opens up the door for Ninja Theory to basically just keep doing what they do. Hopefully, like we already know that Ninja Theory has been greenlit on their next project. They didn't say what it is yet. We know that they're still working on Project Mara, which is also supposed to be more of an interactive experience, less of a video game. So I, as a fan, as much as I love Ninja Theory, I hope this means that Microsoft is like, yep, just keep doing what you do and cranking out those awesome games, because I want a Ninja Blade or a Hellblade 3. And if it goes bigger, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. Like I know Ninja Theory can do action games because they did the Devil May Cry game, which is awesome. They did Enslaved, which is awesome. They did Heavenly Sword on the PS3 back in the day, which is awesome. They know action games. They're great at it. So I'm hopeful that this allows them to either do another Hellblade 3 that they can keep doing it the way they're doing it, or maybe they start making like a spin-off that goes the action route. Oh, there's so many options. Who knows?
That's the thing. I wouldn't want it to go completely action,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's also the I think the charm of Hellblade for me is because of the subject matter that it is tackling psychosis and these things, and you don't want that to be hushy slushy hushy slushy. It's a serious matter, and it's in the idea of it is you're trying to get the idea that to feel what Senua feels like, with the voices and stuff. You're supposed to be experiencing what she's been, and you're not going to pay attention to the voices if you are just button mashing, smash, 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 smash. The idea is you're supposed to be in the quiet moments, which anyone who suffers from any kind of mental illness can tell you. It's when it's the quiet moments, that's when it's the loudest. So it's those moments when you are walking through the forest and you've got this kind of like tick, 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 tick. That's the things that they want you to experience. So it shouldn't be a hacky slash game, because it's supposed to be an adult, mature game about a mature subject, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. It's supposed to be. It's one of the first games I think that's actually treated like mental illness like something serious and well researched. So I would want it to keep that kind of label and not be hacky slashy and cheapened to just another God of War clone, because that's what people will accuse it of.
Oh yeah.
People go, oh, well, it used to be Hellblade and now it's fucking God of War. Yeah. It's just like, it's just like, oh shit, no one, you people can't be happy about anything. Seriously.
No, well, people don't want to be happy. People just want to be angry and hate on everything.
Basically,
that's I definitely agree with that, though. I definitely agree. One person on the internet will say, this game took me 5 hours, and all of a sudden everybody on the internet took it 5 hours to do. And it's like, no, it didn't. No one completed it in 5 hours. Stop jumping on the bandwagon, you fucking pillocks. Don't clip that, Dan. I definitely do think, like, I would definitely want them to kind of get the best of what made one and 2's combat, like what made them good, and kind of combine it together. Because it's like the number one thing I kind of really didn't like about the combat in the second, I didn't believe it. It wasn't as believable as the first game. It's like, I get it, like maybe all those enemies weren't there because it's all in her mind. Like, yes, she's fighting her mind essentially, but if you're looking at it from the point of those enemies are real, like especially like the cave level, you're telling me you're surrounded by all these little naked, slippery, wet guys, and they're just gonna go at you one-on-one. Like, they're like, all right, I'm next after Jeff. All right, get ready.
Movie.
All right, my turn. Let's jump in. Tag me in.
They do their creepy.
Come into the chair.
They do their creeper screech like that. The stock.
But like the other thing that kind of made me laugh about some of the fighting animations were especially like specifically those people. the amount of clumsiness, like you ever had like the enemies like stumble over each other? I think that's what
They crash into each other once or
They
twice.
crash into each other. Like, yeah. Oh no, I'm still gonna fight you. Okay, darn it.
Yeah,
But, yeah, that's kind of where I stand with the combat.
Yeah.
Is I like fighting more than one enemy, but I would also want it believable if it was just one-on-one.
Yeah. There's a hope too for if they do another one, is that they can do that where they can kind of flesh out the combat, because there was obviously a lot of stakes in Senua Saga that they would have to make this game as good as they possibly can, and they leaned hard into these dynamic, scripted story fight scenes that they play out a very specific way. There's certain enemies that do certain things. They crash into each other. You get the one person that comes in and hits the guy, and there's some believability, at least in those arena fights, because they're trying to tell you that around you, other people are fighting. So that's kind of the reason why you're only fighting one-on-one, because other people are fighting around you. At least that's kind of what they're giving you.
It
But
kind of
again,
becomes
like
more
when you're fighting
apparent
the
at the
flesh
end.
eaters, you're fighting a bunch by yourself.
I do like what Maria kind of touched on earlier, though, was about the second game, how it is kind of more personal when you are fighting, like the one-on-ones. Like, I don't think you get that in the first one, of like every swing, like you feel it.
Yeah,
you feel
weight
like
to
the
it.
exhaustion, like the tiredness. Like when you parry, you're just like, oh my goodness, you fall back. And that is one thing I do like about the second one's combat. But like, if they can find a way to kind of get the best, like I said, the best of both games and make it into like the third one, I'll be happy with it. If there's a third one.
Yeah. Again, like I said, hopefully this will open that door for them with their partnership with Microsoft and people supporting the games and the studio. So here's hoping. To close this out, though, let's go around and kind of give our review score for the game. You can go ahead and give us your kind of quick summary of why you came to that decision, and give us your number out of 10.
Ooh. Ooh. I don't think I have a reasoning, because I didn't really think. I don't know how to describe it. I have my score, but I feel like I can't do it justice in a way, because it's like I don't even know what I would give the first one. There's so much I love about it, but there's also so much like I would like to fix about it. But its weaknesses are kind of what makes the game what it is, in a way. It's like I'm not big on walking simulators. I'm not big on like non-actiony games, but if this game was that, I don't think I would like it as much. The story was wonderful, even though I do think the first one was a little bit more personal, and it did grab me by the heartstrings a little bit more. But I kind of left the second one kind of with more questions than I had answers. And I like that. I like having to go after a game finishes and see what everybody else thinks and their interpretations of the game. So kind of like with that said, I would give it an 8.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think like it's hard to give a game like a 10 because it's not a perfect game. And I played it and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good game, but it was when I finished it, the story was great, but I thought the first one was better. I enjoyed the first one a lot more. And so I feel like I think I would give it an 8 as well, because while I enjoyed it, there was a lot of restrictedness to it where I was kind of like, there's a lot lacking in this game, but it's a good game. But I think it's a game that's not for everybody. It's a game that's you have to take the story more than it being a game. You have to be more kind of like, it's more for someone who's going to pay attention to what's actually going on in the story, like not me, because I just want to hit things. So I feel like having it as, I think I would give Hellblade 1 like a 9, and because I thought Hellblade 1 was better than this, I think I would give this one an 8, just because it's kind of like it was lacking in some areas, but it was good in other areas. So I feel like it's an 8. Yeah.
No, that's a very good reasoning. And I wanted to at least say any review score is always subjective for the person, because like anyone else could play this game and be like, this is dog shit. How dare anyone say this is a good game? This is stupid. It's going to happen no matter what game you talk about. Not everyone's going to love everything. And I want to say that the thing that I think is most important about Hellblade and the way we look at Hellblade 2 is that it is closer to art than it is a video game because of how much they put into it technically, graphically, audio-wise, story-wise. It's not so much a game as it is an experience because it's more of just experiencing the story and less of playing a game so much. And I said this to you earlier, Maria. I kind of relate it to Limbo. And the way I relate it to Limbo is Limbo is also mostly walking. You spend the whole game just holding the stick to the right and walking from left to right, from one end to the other. But then you run into puzzles and you have to solve the puzzles. The puzzles in Limbo are brilliant. That's what makes that game amazing. That game got 10 out of 10 from most places because it's such a perfect condensed experience. It's short. It's like 6 hours. But from start to finish, it's just this mesmerizing experience. Now, Hellblade in a similar fashion is like that, but presented in these crazy over-the-top 3D visuals that are just jaw-dropping. And I think people are going to hold it to a higher standard and criticize it harder because when they see those 3D visuals, they assume God of War, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima. They assume these PlayStation Studio games that get super bloated with mechanics and gameplay and levels and experience and add-ons and maps, and they just get so blown out. Like, I haven't finished most of those games because they just feel too long or there's too much. And I don't think that's Hellblade should be held to the same standard as much to those because A, it's not a full-blown $60, $70 AAA game. It looks like one, but it's still a very shorter, condensed, almost an indie game. Because Hellblade 1 was absolutely an indie game.
Yeah.
Ninja Theory developed and published that game by themselves. And then Microsoft acquired them and helped them publish the second game. But they kept it small. So I, being sensitive to a lot of things as well as the game, and I feel like Senua and her journey is very personal to me. I agree with everything you guys have said. I'm going to land on a 9 for it just because of how emotionally impactful the game was for me and just how hard it hits me. And I love how it looks. I love how it feels. I love the story. It definitely has a lot of shortcomings. It definitely is missing some of the depth that the first game had that I wish it did. But it kind of makes up for it in other ways. But I absolutely 100% think you guys are reasonable in your thoughts and experiences as well. Like, I'm not going to argue that. I think it's fair for the general person to land around an 8 on this game.
As I've been talking to people about this game, like my perception of it has changed, because you have to take into account, because when it first I saw it, it's visually stunning. But when people were saying, oh, how good it is, it's easy to compare it to Naughty Dog games or something like that. And when you see it and people go, oh, hey, how stunning it is, you instantly go, well, it's not different to Uncharted 4, or it's no different to The Last of Us, or it's no different to this or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you have to remember, that's Naughty Dog. These guys, this is 80 people made this game. So it's like, you do have to take into account of like, it's not a AAA studio. It is a small AA studio now because it's owned by Microsoft and stuff. So you do have to have that allowance of like, give the small dogs a pat on the back a little bit and be like, good job, guys, because it was, you're a small dog in a big race.
But so, also, like, Ninja Theory can make those big games. They have made those big games. They have those big games in their roster, but that's not what Hellblade is.
Yeah.
The whole point, like you said, Maria, you don't want that game to be hacky slashy. You don't want it to do that because the whole point would be lost if you made the game into a God of War. If they blew out Hellblade 2 into this 30-hour epic that you spent, the vast majority of just murdering Draugr, and you had like leveling up swords and leveling up skill trees.
Oh God, I would hate that. I hate that so much. I don't want to level up shit. I don't want to learn how to pick up arrows. I don't give a shit.
Right.
So I don't want that. I'm happy that they stuck to the story and they were like, even if it was restricted, just following that story, and it's an adult story, and you can listen to it and go, I know where it's going. I don't want skill trees. I don't want to read emails. I don't care if they're engraved on rocks or whatever it is. I don't want to do it. So,
there's the trick. There's the thing right there. What Hellblade did for you, Maria, is all of the collectibles are audio logs that they read to you instead of having to pick up a scrap of paper and like, let me read 16 pages of stuff that's been scribbled in feather ink.
Do it. I cannot do it, and that's that's another reason why
I never read anything you pick up, and it's like if I can't read this or if it's hard to read, like nope, I'm done.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I would look at that rune rock thing, and I'm like, I look at it, and then the guy starts talking to me, and I fucking walk off. Yeah. I walk off, and he's still talking, and he's just kind of like, and 4 in the
Northmen came, and then the Northmen.
And I come back, and I'm like, is he still talking? And he's like, and the Northmen came, and I'm just kind of like, I'm not even listening.
No, but I definitely agree. Less is more.
Yeah.
In certain games, and I definitely think Hellblade is a game to where it doesn't need to be an Assassin's Creed. It doesn't need to be a God of War type game.
Mm.
It having less does more for my experience than it would be if I had a million collectibles, viewpoints I had to go to, and all that stuff. But no, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I will say this about most games now is that they come out, and then in 6 months, no one cares. You won't remember them. I will remember this game going forward. It will be a game that will stick with me because of the way it is and the story it is, and especially like the ending of this game. And there was like one quote, and I think I'm going to get it tattooed on my fucking body because it was the quote that said, and it's personal to me, where it's what was it? It was like I have my dad's darkness, but it's not mine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck. So, and I was just kind of like, because that's personal to me. So that's something that will carry on down the road for me. And I will remember this game down the road. And so that's what stuck with me with the first game, was that even I was looking forward to the second game coming out, because I was like, that game resonated with me because I don't have psychosis, but I do have mental illness stuff that's going on. Like I do have anxieties and shit. So I understand where she's coming from. So it's a game that well explains it. But yeah, it will be a game that I will remember down the road. And I'm like, you have to play that game. I would recommend it to anybody. Where other games, I'm just like, don't. It's boring.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's kind of like if someone was like, should I play God of War? Like, well, if you like these kind of games, sure. It's like, but no, you should play Hellblade regardless of what you like, kind of thing.
If you want a story for adults, play Hellblade. Yeah.
And it's the other thing we have to acknowledge too is just the writing is just so fracking good. The writing is just phenomenal in those games, and like you said, those lines. And then I think it's around that same time too where the closing shot that Jake was showing a screenshot of. She talks about like the people pushing her forward and like carrying her, and it's just like, oh, like. I said in the beginning of the game, I spent that first like 30 minutes or so like in tears, mostly just because I was so overwhelmed by everything and like the dramaticness, the voices, the way you're experiencing things, the way you hear things, you hear her father's voice. And then like it kind of leveled out. And then like the whole game, I was like, okay, well, this is cool. This is cool. All right, cool. And then that last like 30 minutes of the game, again, it was just like, oh my God, like it's so emotionally heavy and impactful.
Agreed.
So yeah, that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because it's so hard to just say, oh, it's an 8. Yeah, okay, yeah, if you go play, But there's so many other factors there to consider and think about that the game does that no other game does. That's the thing right there, is it does so many things that no other game does.
Yeah, it's unique. It's a unique game experience to itself. It's in its own little like box of game. It's not like other games. You can't really compare it to other games because it's not like them. So it's unfair to go, it's just a universal score. It doesn't.
I don't know any other game that does the 3D audio like Hellblade does.
No.
Right?
I don't know any other game that's ever done the subtitles cleverly. Like every time I ever watch anything that's got black boxes and the subtitles aren't in the black box, I'm like, why didn't they just use that space and put the subtitles there? Oh, this is a little bit different, but the you can go into photo mode during the cutscenes, and you can move the camera in the cutscenes. Is there any other game that does that?
I don't know. I usually press photo mode by accident. So I don't know
of any other game that lets you do photo mode in a cutscene. Like A lot of games let you photo mode in cutscene, but it's locked to the
It
frame
stays.
you're on.
Mhm.
You can photo that frame. But in Hellblade, the game world is playing out in real time during the cutscenes, and you can move the camera, change the angle, and you can change focus. You can do anything in photo mode during the cutscenes. It's bananas. You can focus on anything during the there is a little bit of a restriction, like you can't turn the camera all the way around during certain parts, or you can only move it so much. But still, the fact that you can move it at all is nuts. That you can like be like, oh, like that thing over there looks really cool, and you can do these really smart depth of field filter focusing, so you can look at different objects that aren't even in focus during the cutscene.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
Cool. Anyways, you guys should definitely play Hellblade and play Hellblade 2. Both games are on Game Pass if you have Xbox, or buy it if you can. I wouldn't be surprised if Hellblade 2 makes its way to PlayStation at some point, because that's Microsoft's new strategy. It's a smart one. If you don't agree, then you're old.
It's your opinion.
It's an archaic.
Get over here. You're old.
You're old. I feel like the old commercials or something, like if it's too loud, you're too old kind of thing. But no, it's just that's an archaic practice of not putting your games everywhere, essentially. Like it's the way of the times moving forward. It's going to happen. But yeah, if you can play Hellblade, try to play Hellblade. It's a big, crazy, dramatic experience. If you don't like walking simulators, it's the story's there though. The story makes it worth it. Because I play plenty of walking simulators, so I get super bored. Like,
just go into an open mind. You know, just don't have any expectations. If you want an expectation, play Hellblade 1. An expectation from that, because it's the same story. So you know, just.
I mean, that's what I did. Like, I had no idea what the game was. I've been sitting on it. It's been installed on my Xbox for months.
You finally played it after I was like, we're doing a podcast.
Play it. He's like, all right, next week we're doing it. I was like, I guess I got to play it. But I'm happy. I'm kind of happy I played it all in 1 week. I'm glad I got to, as soon as I rolled credits on 1, was able to go into 2. But I feel like it kind of dampened my expectations a little bit, but it made up for it while playing through it. But definitely recommend playing it.
So you had that way of experiencing it, whereas I played the original Hellblade when it was a PS4 exclusive, and I had pre-ordered it. And I haven't played it since 2017. I mean, I've played the game since then, but I played the first time back in 2017. But yeah, man, I'm a big fan. I love it. I love Ninja Theory, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. Thank you, Maria, that you were able to knock it out and be like, hey, would you want to come on the podcast? You're like, yeah, I'll come on the fucking podcast. It's cool.
Well, I don't want to be super salty either. I didn't want to come on and be like, this guy's fucking shit, because that will get.
That was actually like the first game you played this year, right?
Probably. Yeah.
Other than Destiny.
So does that make it your game of the year?
It's my game of the year because that's the only game I played.
Maria played a game.
Yeah, I played a game. Look, achievement. I should get achievement for that. Played a game. Yeah.
Little party
fanfare. With that, just wanted to say thank you, everyone. If you've been hanging out, enjoying, and listening to this conversation, it means a lot to us if you're here and you're supporting the show. There's so many reasons I like doing this, and I love talking about video games. And I would love to hear from you guys, you know, what you thought of our conversation, what your thoughts are on Hellblade. If you think we're stupid, if we need to shove it up our ass, tell us. Share with us. Give us something.
Please tell me. I need objects to shove up my ass.
Stop giving me things to quote you with, Maria, and make you
space right now, and I need things to shove up there.
And make you get mad at me for clipping you, and you keep saying the things. I'm not going to take the bait, Maria.
I just gonna keep saying really inappropriate things that Dan's like, I really want to clip that. Nope.
I've been saying this too. Anyways, thank you, Maria. Thank you, Jake. And thank you all out there for watching and listening. And a special shout out to all the CouchSoup members for supporting us as we make this show possible. And we'll catch you guys all next time. Go enjoy the video games you're playing and stop hating on stuff for no reason.
Maybe a hater.
That's my new line. That's my new thing. Go play the games, enjoy them, and stop hating. Stop hating.
Play a game or something. Get out of here.
Go play a game.
What are you still doing
here?
Get out of here.
Leave.
Get out of here. To play. Hellblade 2 is right there.
Go
play
get it.
What are you doing? This isn't Marvel.
Gears!
There's no
Control!
post-credit scene. Control!
Yeah, there's no after the credits. Sometimes I put something after the credits.
Stay just in case, but then go play something. Can you imagine Snake with that? With all the voices in his head?
Mm.
You're pretty good. You're pretty good. You're pretty good. You're pretty
That's
good.
all it would say.
You're pretty
All
good.
it would say. The entire game would just be him walking. You're pretty good. You're pretty
You're
good.
pretty good. You're pretty good. You're pretty good. Tasty. What? What?
Oh.
Oh.
He sees,
Microwave.
he, sees he sees his own ass in a mirror and goes, oh.
I want this.